Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. Before I became a rabbi, I spent 1 year in Jerusalem, and I was studying Jewish texts. I was also working as a journalist, writing about religion, and I was also an interfaith activist. I was involved in many interfaith activities. And one night there was a gathering of Jews and Muslims and Christians, and I can't remember what topic it was, but something interesting, and we were one of Jerusalem's many different organizations and institutes discussing a common issue that we were all facing. And there was another rabbi there, one of many, who was originally from Arizona, and he was on a sabbatical from his pulpit in Orange County. And his contribution that night made an impression on me, and he found my contribution interesting as well. And some weeks later, I just happened to see him at my father's meditation night. My father is a teacher of Jewish meditation, rabbi also. And I became friends with this rabbi, and he heard that I was contemplating maybe becoming a rabbi. And he started to sing the praise of a rabbinical school in Los Angeles. I had never lived in the United States at that point before, and I didn't think it was going to happen. And it seemed very far off and not interesting. But in the midst of all of it, he kept pushing and being in touch. And I was very engaged in the journalism, but he kept pushing and pushing. And he organized a meeting with one of his interns, who was a rabbinical student at that time in Jerusalem. Then he facilitated a call with the school in Los Angeles, and he put in a good word. And so I applied, and I was accepted, and they offered a nice scholarship. And a few months later, I was on a plane on the way to a whole new life. And that rabbi now, Eli Spitz, who's retired, visited me in my sukkah last week. And I finally had a chance to thank him for that little act of kindness. Sometimes we don't have a chance to do it, we don't realize it while it's happening to one. But I thanked him for a little push and a little help, and for making those connections and going out of his way, which opened up a whole new door in my life. And it was really a wonderful, heartfelt gesture. It's the kind of person that he is. And this really is a type of behavior that we try and do on this holiday of Sukkot, right? The Yom Kippur is all about asking for forgiveness, about giving forgiveness, but Sukkot is really about extending that generosity and that open heart to other people, both giving it and also in receiving it. On the one hand, it's actually physical. We're supposed to extend charity more than other times of year, not only because to help people, but also because it brings goodness into the world. And the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, would say, when someone hands a coin to a person in need, the coin is a letter Yud, the giving hand is a letter Hey, the giving arm is a letter Vav, and the receiving hand is a letter Hey, spelling out the name Yud Hey Vav Hey, our name for God. An act of charity brings God's presence into the world. And on Sukkot, we're supposed to give double the charity that we do ordinarily. But even more than extending generosity in a physical need, it's about our hearts. And this is a time where we just think, how can I be kind to other people? And let them know of my gratitude for their kindness to me. One of my favorite Hasidic stories is from the holiday of Sukkot, and it's about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. And as the story goes, every year he would compete with another Rebbe to find who would have the best etrog. The etrog is a citrus fruit that we use ceremonially on Sukkot. And pious Jews spend hours trying to find the best, most blemishless etrog fruit. So every year they would compete, but one year not a single etrog could be found in all of the Ukraine and all of Poland, and he despaired of ever finding one. But suddenly news came that there was one etrog available for sale, but only for an enormous sum. So Levi Yitzchak didn't budge, didn't hesitate. He took all of the money that he had, and he set out to buy that etrog. But as he was traveling around the road, Levi Yitzchak passed a dilapidated-looking wagon, and he saw that a man an old man was pulling on the poles himself of the wagon. And so he went up to him and said, "Where's your horse?" Rabbi Yitzchak inquired. And the man responded, well, my horse died, and I have no money to buy a new one. So Rabbi Yitzchak said, well, how much would it cost to buy a new horse? And the man told him this sum, and it was precisely the amount of money that he had on him. So what did he do? He gave him all the money that he had, and he sat back home. When all the Hasidim of the rival Rabbi, heard what had happened, they began to rejoice, saying, this year we're surely going to win the contest of the best etrog, because Levi Yitzchak doesn't even have an etrog. But then their Rebbe said to them, well, Levi Yitzchak was using an etrog to fulfill the mitzvah of the 4 species and worship God. I still had a chance of competing with him. But when he uses a horse to worship God, how can I ever compete with him? But acts of kindness do truly transform people's lives. And I know, not to embarrass them, that Jesse and John are the type of people in our community who do those kinds of acts of loving kindness, always with an open heart. And Jack, I know, is following, as we heard this morning, in that role as well. So Liora, I know you stepped up, but I'm sending you a little message. You picked a good family to be born into. And this is what we do on Sukkot. We look into our hearts just the way we examine an etrog, trying to search for all the imperfections and smooth out all of it. And to remember those acts of kindness that happened to us years ago and express gratitude for them and go out of our way to do new ones. Because the spiritual heart is not just an organ in our body, but it's a place where the very beauty of our humanity is revealed. As the book of Proverbs says, the heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. And when we do that, we reveal our heart one act at a time. We're also building a whole world of chesed, of loving kindness. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.